The Bureau's Deputy Director, Andrew McCabe, has been named the acting director. White House officials say a new FBI director nominee is expected in the coming days.
All right, joining us now for more reaction to this dramatic story, the firing of James Comey, is attorney David Bruno right here in studio and GOP strategist Chris Neiweem. Good to see both of you. The question for you, David, first is why now? Why was Director Comey fired?
Sure, like Sean Spicer just said in the clip we just watched, this is not about Donald Trump. This is about the Deputy Attorney General and his recommendation to fire. And in fact, what we're seeing is this was a nomination by the president that actually happened in January, and it took until April 25th, that the Deputy Attorney General was actually confirmed by the Senate. It was a 94-6 vote. And he was the one that wrote a memo to the Attorney General recommending this. And in fact, it was not only what he did for the Clinton investigation, but it was the press conference. And most recently, he actually testified, Dr. Comey testified before the Oversight Committee on May 3rd. And he said he'd do it again. He would give another press conference, and that was the point that they had to make that decision.
Chris, what are your thoughts? Was this long overdue? What are your thoughts?
I agree with David on referencing the memo from Rodstein over at the Department of Justice. I think it's just a new chapter for the FBI. The president probably felt it was time to move on. I think many people may agree that, Director Comey was sort of a statue in this political ocean where, all the decisions he was doing, folks wanted him to go one way or the other, just listening to Senator Schumer's comments. And I think it might be beneficial to have a new leader in there as we move forward and move past this political chapter post-election.
Chris, I want to stay with you and ask you about the Democratic response to this. We heard from Chuck Schumer last night calling this a mistake, but it was the Democrats who blamed Comey for essentially Hillary Clinton losing the election, but now they're questioning the firing of Comey. Can you explain that?
Well, first I have to confess, every time I hear crying Chuck Schumer, I do laugh out loud a little bit. But I think the fact is, 2015, Senator Schumer was calling for stricter vetting with immigration policy, and then a year and a half later, he was crying about it. I mean, it's partisanship, hyper-partisanship. So I don't think you can look at that, take that too seriously. But I do think that, investigations that are going on will continue. And if anything, the president removing Director Comey increases his scrutiny in the media. So I don't see a political advantage. Like I said, it might just be time for that next chapter at the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Well, David, that brings us to our next chapter. And so what is it? You have Trump saying we need new leadership. There was really this feeling that he had way too much power. Your thoughts? Where do we go now?
Yeah, well, the key is going to be this Russian investigation. And in fact, the same Deputy Attorney General that made this recommendation, he's in charge of the investigation. And by the way, again, he was confirmed.
How important is it to get somebody else in place?
A special prosecutor.
Well, the special prosecutor is going to be up to the Deputy Attorney General. Right now, he is the man. He is running this investigation, the same man that was confirmed by the Senate 94-6. And it's his decision whether or not to bring in the independent prosecutor.
Is one needed, Chris? A special prosecutor here for the Russia investigation?
It may be. I mean, I think that the comments by Mr. Krauthammer last night on Fox News Channel are interesting. I mean, essentially, there's no crime. They're looking for this. But the comparisons to Watergate, I've heard Watergate more than I've actually seen it, and I live in Washington, D.C. So yeah. I think it's possible, but it'll proceed the way it is now. And I think if something comes out that's significant, we'll know about it.
And something else Krauthammer said last night, that in terms of Comey being fired, he made enemies on both sides. And when you have no one to stand up against you, unfortunately, this is what happened.
Absolutely.
David Bruno, Chris Neiweem, thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.